This meeting is now convened. The time is 5:01 p.m. Board members present, and sorry, I think one of y'all have, maybe that was me. Okay. Board members, does everybody who's in the room have their audio on mute? You should not, if you're on Zoom, don't be connected do not connect to audio on Zoom and put your computer on mute. Okay. Board members present via Zoom are Trustee Santos. Are you there, Trustee Sung?
I'm here, thank you.
Board members, hang on. Feel good? Okay. All right. Board members present via Zoom are Trustee Santos and Trustee Sung. Board members present in the auditorium are Trustee Cruz, Trustee Allen, Trustee Guidry, Trustee Flynn-Villaseca, Trustee Hernandez, Trustee Bluford Daniels, and myself. Trustees, please put your microphones on mute and turn your videos on so our colleagues and the public can see you. I would like to thank Commissioner R. Jack Cagle and Commissioner Adrian Garcia for the proclamations that they have given to each board member. And I believe that Commissioner Cagle or Commissioner Garcia is joining the meeting tonight. Go ahead, Mr. Cagle.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all tonight. I'm Kent Klingerman speaking on behalf of Commissioner Cagle. We just want to express our thanks to everyone that is involved in the operations of the Houston Independent School District, but especially tonight the Board of Trustees for all their tireless work in serving the students and the families of the HISD area. Commissioner Cagle prepared a proclamation for each of the board members. We dropped off those personalized copies earlier this week. I would like to read that on behalf of Commissioner Cagle. It states, the Honorable Harris County Precinct 4 Commissioner R. Jack Cagle hereby recognizes Board of Trustees for Houston Independent School District. As Precinct 4 Commissioner of Harris County, Texas, and on behalf of the citizens of Harris County, it is my pleasure to recognize and commend you for your investment in the education of our students. I thank you for providing the leadership, support, and wisdom that the students, parents, and educators in our community needed to succeed this school year. Therefore, I hereby proclaim the month of January 2021 as School Board Recognition Month. Signed, R. Jack Cagle, Commissioner, Harris County Precinct 4. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you so much. Next, I believe we have a representative on behalf of Commissioner Garcia.
Yes, good evening. And thank you to Dr. Lathan and to the Board of Trustees for the opportunity to allow me to represent the Commissioner and make a few remarks on his behalf. But first, I'd like to thank you all on a personal level as a former educator and someone whose nieces and nephews attend schools in HISD. I have a sister also who taught at Peck Elementary, then was assistant principal at Harriet, and finally principal at Tijerina. Thank you all for everything that the board does in and out to ensure that our children in HISD in Houston get the resources that are needed. I want to take the opportunity to read to you also a few remarks from Commissioner Garcia. We did deliver also some certificates from the Commissioner yesterday, I believe. But the Commissioner wanted to make a few words. The Commissioner says, local school board members commit to children and believe that every child can be a successful learner. They work closely with educational institution staff, faculty, parents, and other community members to create the educational vision we want for our youth. The responsibility of ensuring the structure that provides a solid foundation for our school systems is not an easy one to bear, those individuals who commit to shouldering that incredible task are worthy of commendation. The incredible commitment of advocating for public education and acting as liaisons between the districts and the public to communicate needs and expectations is a hefty task. We at Harris County Precinct 2 would like to join other school districts across the state to honor you for your dedication and service in this and the years to come. So we want to wish everyone at the HISD Board of Trustees a wonderful year, a better 2021, a better year, and thank you for everything that you are doing for our children.
Thank you so much. I'd also like to take a moment very quickly to thank the board services staff. While it is Board Appreciation Month, I think I'd be remiss in not acknowledging the staff that support this board that make all of our work possible. So thank you all. We have now come to the portion of our meeting where we hear from speakers to specific agenda items. We welcome all of you who are joining us online this evening. In response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, the Hattie Mae White Educational Support Center is observing Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines. At this time, the Manuel Rodriguez Board Auditorium remains closed to the public for public meetings. However, it is still important that we allow time to hear from members of the community. Only those who have registered with the Board Services Office by online form or email before 9:30 a.m. today will be allowed to speak or have their comments read aloud. District staff will call registered speakers and place them in a Zoom virtual waiting room until time for them to speak. Speakers may also have submitted written comments to be read publicly by a member of the district's administration in case there is a problem with Zoom. Should any registered speaker wish to distribute handout materials to the board, the materials must have been provided to board services via email at boardservices@houstonisd.org by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 2 speakers registered this evening who shall be limited to 2 minutes each per board policy. A member of the board services staff will track your time. A clock will signal when your time is up and the call will end. I ask that you please respect our procedures and end your remarks promptly when your time has expired. Additionally, while you are speaking on the call, please mute your computer or other device on which you are watching the board meeting in order to avoid interference. I'm going to turn it over to the administration to make the calls.
Our first speaker is Gary Monroe. Mr. Monroe, you may begin.
Hey, how y'all doing? I want to talk to y'all about the HISD Police Department. I clearly get that some people want to get rid of the police department in the Houston Independent School District, which happens to be one of the most patient police departments I've ever seen. Now, you want to take funding away from these guys. Let's talk about technology. They have the technology from the Stone Ages. They don't have any technology. You want to decrease their funding, but at the same time, they're the 13th lowest paid police organization in the surrounding county. So where's the common sense in that? There is no common sense. I recommend that each one of y'all take a walk to North Forest ISD, North Forest School, the high school, and tell me what you see at 8 o'clock in the morning when kids got to enter the building. What you see is all them kids lined up outside of the building. They checking backpacks. What they checking them for? Why they checking them? Because they know it's a threat on the campus. So y'all have a problem. And I'm going to tell you what the problem is. You don't want to be honest with yourself. See, back in the day, you took the discipline out of school because you didn't want the black administrators and the black teachers beating your white kids. So now you don't want the black police officers dealing with your white kids. You're making decisions for your side of town, not our side of town. On the black side of town, we need what we need, and we need our HISD police. If you don't like it, get you a dog, because ain't nothing going to change about the way I said it, the way I delivered it. Stop making decisions for the people that give you money for your campaign, and start making rational decisions for these children.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Daniel Santos. Mr. Santos, you may begin.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Daniel Santos, Executive Vice President of the Houston Federation of Teachers. And tonight I rise to speak against the in-kind donation in agenda item I-2 from Good Reason Houston in order to revise the teacher evaluation system. As one of the original plaintiffs in the EVALS lawsuit, I condemn any decision to introduce merit pay schemes that incorporate primitive forms of student growth measures like standardized tests, or flawed algorithms like value-added models. Merit pay schemes telegraph a perverse message to the community that teachers could do a better job but refuse to unless they are bribed. In 2018, the Bill Gates Foundation, after experimenting for 6 years and investing $500 million, confessed that systems which emphasize test scores to evaluate and reward teachers fail to improve student achievement. During a pandemic, we should be laser focused on the well-being of our students and their families, and not distracted by a manufactured teacher evaluation crisis. To move forward with this experiment without input from HFT representatives would be viewed by many teachers as a betrayal of trust. I call on trustees tonight to please stand with students and teachers and to reject this donation. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers to agenda items.
The first meeting of each new year involves the election and installation of board officers. We will now proceed with the election process conducted in accordance with our board operating procedures. First is the office of board president. So nominations for office of president are now in order. Are there any nominations? Trustee Cruz.
Okay. Can y'all hear me? Is this mic on? Okay, thank you. I move that we name Sue Dygard president of the Board of Trustees.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations for board president?
Yes, ma'am.
Use the queue, please. Trustee Bluford Daniels.
I nominate Dr. Patricia Allen as president of HISD Board of Trustees.
Is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Santos.
I move that we nominate Trustee Ann Sung as president of the HISD Board.
Is there a second? Any further nominations for the office of president? Please use the speaker queue. Seeing no further trustees in the queue, we vote in order of the nominations. So the first nomination is for Trustee Dygard. Trustees, please vote. Trustees Guidry and Flynn Villaseca. Four in favor, 5 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. The next nomination was for Trustee Allen. Please vote.
Trustee Dygard, I have a point of clarification, please.
Yes,
So you said that the last motion passed or failed?
it failed.
Okay, because you said passed. So I have a question for legal. Legal, can we vote yay twice?
Each vote is an independent vote. Sorry,
Okay,
my
thank
mic
you.
wasn't on. Did you hear me, Trustee Santos?
Yes, I did. Thank Lisa. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Can y'all vote again?
Trustee Guidry, what's your vote? We can't see you. You can see her? Okay. 4 in favor, 5 opposed. Moving on to the next trustee. The next nomination for Trustee Sung. Please vote. Trustee Guidry? Does Trustee Guidry have the colored paddles? No. Where are you, Trustee Guidry? Four in favor, 5 opposed. The public has always wanted to see what this process looked like. And here we are. So we keep going around, and we're going to keep going around until somebody gets to 5. So we start over again with Trustee Dygard. Four in favor, 5 opposed, 0 abstentions. Next trustee. Next nomination was for Trustee Allen. Four in favor, 5 opposed. Next trustee was Trustee Sung. This time it's changed. We have 3 in favor, 6 opposed. Trustees, any discussion on how you want to proceed with this?
Just keep going.
Keep going? Okay. Any other comments? Keep going? All right. Trustee Dygard. Four in favor, 5 opposed. Trustee Allen. 3 in favor, 6 opposed. Trustee Sung. Three in favor, 6 opposed.
Down 2, right? Down at 2.
No, we still have, there's still 3.
Oh, Lord, we'll be here all night.
We keep going until somebody gets to 5 or somebody gets 0 votes or somebody says they don't want to do it. So back to Trustee Dygard. Four in favor, 5 opposed. Trustee Allen. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Sung. Three in favor, 5 against, 1 abstention. Trustee Dygard.
President Dygard.
Yes, ma'am.
You.
Sorry. Trustee Cruz.
I'm all for, we can keep doing this. I would also suggest maybe a completely different nomination.
Are we allowed to do that?
You can reopen nomination.
She said we can reopen nominations.
I'm sorry. Yes, we said we can reopen.
Reopen nominations. Okay. So I'm going to reopen nominations. Trustees, use the queue. Trustee Santos.
I nominate Trustee Ann Sung.
She's already one of the nominees. I'm reopening nominations. If anybody wants to nominate, if not, somebody wants to nominate. So there's still Dygard.
My question was, we're adding one more. That was my only question.
Yeah, so there will be 4 or more after this, if anybody adds any. So Trustee, who's next in the queue? Trustee Santos, you asked a question. Trustee Sung, you're next in the queue.
I nominate Trustee Fonseca, if he will accept.
Is there a second? Hearing.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Hernandez.
I have a question for Lisa, for legal.
Yes.
Can we not eliminate one person out of the 3?
No, we're following Robert's Rules of Order, so we go in the order of nominations voting, and whoever gets the majority first is your elected officer.
Okay, then I nominate Judith Cruz.
Second. Seeing no further speakers in the queue, we're going to do this round again. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trustees. Good thing we didn't have a lot of speakers to agenda items today. We now have 5 out of 9 trustees. And it will go in the order in which they were nominated. And just to reiterate, it's Dygard, Allen, Sung, Flynn-Villaseca, Cruz. So first, Trustee Dygard. 4 in favor, 5 opposed. Next, Trustee Allen. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstentions. Trustee Sung. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Flynn Villaseca. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Cruz. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. I think we made this more complicated instead of less complicated. I do not want to encourage adding more people to the list, but that is also an option. It is also an option if anybody wants to take their name off of the list. Otherwise, we keep doing this unless somebody like legal or anybody else chimes in with another suggestion.
I'm in the queue. I was just going to suggest if anyone is on the list right now, if you want to remove yourself so that this can be a little bit faster. If that's possible.
Hearing none, Trustee Guidry. Yes. The board will now adjourn to closed session in the Board Services Conference Room under Section D of Chapter 551 of Texas Government Code Open Meetings Act, subsections 551.004, 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.0821, 551.083, 551.084, and 551.089. Should board final action vote or decision on any matter considered in the closed session be required, such final action vote or decision shall be taken at the open meeting covered by this notice upon the reconvening of this public meeting or at a subsequent meeting of the board upon notice thereof. The board is adjourned to closed session at 5:30 p.m. Alrighty, resuming our business on selection of officers. So we're going to keep doing this. Trustee Sung?
I move to table this item to the end of our meeting tonight.
Second, Santos.
Do we have discussion? Any discussion on tabling this item? Trustee Allen?
Oh, that was also my view.
Okay. Trustee Santos?
No, I was going to make that one.
All right. Please vote. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. We will finish all the business of our meeting tonight and we'll come back to board officer elections at the end. All righty. Next, hearing of the community, and I did tell Board Services to move our students up earlier tonight, as we have several of them. The kids aren't in the queue yet. Okay. Alrighty then. All right. Interim Superintendent Dr. Lathan. We will now move to the superintendent's priority items. Colleagues, please hold your questions until the presentation is complete. Turning it over to you, Dr. Lathan.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. Dr. Matney and Dr. Bittner are here with us tonight also to share our update. We've made a few changes to the presentation, trustees. We've incorporated some next steps that you'll see. It was already in the presentation that you received. Dr. Matney?
Thank you, Dr. Lathan. President Dygard, trustees, I'm here this evening to present to you our January goal progress monitoring update. We'll be covering first Goal 2. Goal 2, as a reminder, states the percentage of third grade students performing at or above grade level in math as measured by the Meets Grade Level Standard on STAR will increase 8 percentage points from 46% in spring 2019 to 54% in spring 2024. Our first progress measure for this goal states the percentage of first grade students performing on grade level in math as measured by the end of the year math screener will increase 8 percentage points from 64% in 2019 to 72% in 2024. So this report is mathematics, whereas last month in December, we looked at reading. So both of these sets of data are based on the beginning of year screener, but because Lone Star Governance limits us to 2 goals per month, that's why we've separated it out. We did the 2 reading reports with goals last month, and then we're circling back on math this month. So when we look at first grade, we're seeing some similar trends to that we saw with reading last month. We can see again our historical data points are the blue lines on the left. And you can see beginning of year last year, we were at 52% of first grade students in math scoring at or above the benchmark. And this year we were at 86%. Again, that purple COVID dot up there. We're looking at our trajectory wanting to be at 64% this year, but due to a lot of the data concerns that we'll review here in a minute, we do have that higher than expected data point for first grade students, a 34-point difference over last year. So as a reminder about the data quality concerns, students took the universal screener remotely. The beginning of year window was remote for all of our students, leading to some potential data quality issues. Again, the hardware, software complications, disruptions of the testing environment could lead to reduced scores, depending on what the student's home setting was like, if it was a quiet location like what they're used to during the school year in computer labs. Or not, and then parents or others helping out, not really being aware that it was a screener that could lead to increased scores. So we've got several different issues, and most specifically with first and second grade, as we discussed last month with reading, their devices are primarily iPads, and so the remote proctoring is not available, and there were some additional device limitations that we saw leading to that greater 34-point difference. Again, just a reminder that the validity of a test is related to the context in which the results are used. So that beginning of year, the BOY screener results for individual students are still being used by teachers to provide valuable information in addition to other information that teachers have on that student. But the validity is less certain as we aggregate this data up for larger groups like campus groups or even at the district level. So for goal progress measure 2.2, the percentage of second grade students performing on grade level in math is measured by the end of year math screener will increase 8 percentage points from 62% in 2019 to 70% in 2024. So as we look at our second grade math data, again, last year, beginning of year, was 49% of our students who were in second grade scoring at or above the benchmark. This year, we're at 65, which is a 16-point difference from last year to this year. When we look at our second grade students in math, our students who are served through special education services, we have the history there again on the left. Last year, they were at 22% in second grade math at the beginning of year, and this year they were at 50%. So that's a 28-point difference. Moving on to 2.3, we're looking at the percentage of third grade students performing on grade level in math as measured by the end of year math screener will increase 8 percentage points from 69% in 2019 to 77% in 2024. So again, looking at our third grade math students, last year, beginning of year, third graders scored 59%, were in the at or above benchmark level. This year, we have a 4-point increase over that at 63. So much like we discussed last month with the reading, we saw greater differences in our first and second grade results than we did in our third grade results, much more aligned. Just as a reference, the reading was an 8-point difference, so the math is even tighter aligned than the reading. Looking again at our third grade, students with disabilities in math, scoring at or above the benchmark. We were at 22 at the beginning of year last year. We're at 40 for beginning of year this year. So this is what Dr. Lathan referenced. We're incorporating a new component into these presentations to really pull out those next steps. These are things that are included in the actual report that you have as well, but we wanted to be able to highlight these for conversation here within the PowerPoint. So next steps for Goal 2, what are we going to be doing as administration to look at this data and address it? In elementary curriculum and development, we're going to continue to implement the 2021 Grade 3 House Bill 3 Mathematics Literacy Plan, which includes progress monitoring for upcoming data points, supporting prioritized campuses and teachers, and providing Grade 3 professional development sessions. That Grade 3 is phase 1 of a multi-year phase-in plan. So the area superintendent, schools office, and our curriculum team looked at data, identified some of that phase 1 component for rolling out this year. Next steps for Office of Special Education Services, continuing to monitor and review data quarterly on our students and adjust to the strategies and interventions depending on the results in those data reviews to assist in yielding an increase in that math performance for students with disabilities, primarily in second and third grades. Moving on to Goal 3, our Goal 3 is the percentage of graduates that meet the criteria for CCMR, College Career Military Readiness, as measured in Domain 1 of the State Accountability System, will increase 8 percentage points from 63% for the 2017-18 graduates to 71% for the 2022-2023 graduates, as reported in 2024. So our methodology has changed a little bit since y'all have set our targets. So that goal is what was voted on and approved in November. So I'm going to talk through this chart a little bit to give you some context why we've got a blue and a purple and then our red target. So the data that we looked at over last spring, in summer, and then into the fall prior to the November approval, our baseline data was the 2018 graduates. And so when you look at the blue line, that was that 63% that y'all set the target off of. So the goal was starting at 63% and then growing 8 percentage points to 71%. So right after that happened, two things came down from TEA. The first was we actually received our 2019 final CCMR file from TEA. And so those results showed that we were already at the 71. So that's that last blue dot where 2019 grads show. So we had already achieved what y'all wanted us to set out to achieve by 2023, which is a good place to be in. We were excited to see that growth from 63 in 2018 grads to 71 with 2019 grads. That shows our programs are working. We were really excited about that. The other thing that happened during that time is TEA released an announcement that they were not able to receive the military data from the Department of Defense. To date, we've been self-reporting that data, and TEA hasn't necessarily liked that as much, but they've been allowing it. But they have put a pause on using the military enlistment data until they can actually get the real data from, and I say real data, what we submitted is actual real data, but they want the confirmed enlistment, not the intent to enlist, from the Department of Defense. So we knew that military now was going to be removed for a period of time. It may be indefinitely. It's just up to the Department of Defense and TEA to work out that timeline. The other piece that has been eliminated is receiving 0.5, so a half a point credit for students in a coherent sequence of career and technical education courses. So students that are taking 2 or 3 courses that lead up to an industry-based certification, we no longer are getting credit for those students. And they were already only yielding a half a point credit, but that's been removed as well. So once we had those 2 pieces of information, we ran internally what would our data look like if we went back to 2017 graduates and removed the military data and the 0.5 CTE credit data. And that's what the purple line is. So when we remodeled all the data based on removing those 2 components, the 53 would have actually been a 50, the 63 would have been a 54, and that 71 went down to a 61. So that 61, what we decided is we still want to keep that 71 target that y'all wanted us to get to, even though it's a 10-point difference rather than the 8-point difference that originally you all intended. So we're now charging ourselves with actually increasing 10 percentage points instead of that 8 based on this new information from TEA in our recalculations. So just a little bit of context between the 2018 and 2019 graduates. These are all the ways that a student can meet the college career military readiness indicators. So our largest area where we receive CCMR credit is in that very first line on the left, the TSI, the Texas Success Initiative indicator. So as you can see, we went from 38% in 2018 to 43% in 2019, meeting that TSI. And we're going to talk about TSI and the progress measure in just a minute. If you go and you look to the right, you can see there U.S. Armed Forces. That's the military data that we had to remove, that 5 points removal. And then the CTE coherent sequence, removing those 8 points as well. And it's actually 8%, which is 8 points, which is 16% of our students because it's half point credit. All right. So for goal progress measure 3.1, the percentage of students who by the end of 11th grade have demonstrated college readiness by satisfying the Texas Success Initiative, that's TSI, requirements through either the SAT assessment, the ACT assessment, or the Texas Success Initiative Assessment, the TSIA, will increase 8 percentage points. And we had from X to Y. This was one of the areas that we were left pending until we received a couple of additional files. And I can tell you tonight, and we'll see on the next slide, that X, that baseline, is going to be 24%. And then we're going to be bringing to you a revised K policy in February to actually close out progress measure 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 with what those increases and Ys are, those end targets. So when we look at the percentage of students meeting that TSI indicator in reading and math combined, and that's what feeds into the CCMR indicator, the progress measure is looking at grade 11. What we wanted to do is show the context of what it looks like in high school. So the orange bar is 10th grade data, the blue bar is the actual 11th grade data, and then the green bar is, as they leave us, the 12th grade data. So you can see that we have steadily been at 24% meeting the TSI in reading and math for the last 3 years. And then last year in 2019-20, we dropped to 9 points. There's a huge reason for that. We had a dip in testing opportunities. So we get the largest chunk of our TSI testers through our SAT school day for juniors that happens in the spring. And last year, once COVID hit, that opportunity was not there anymore. So we are not on track for this because we had missed opportunities that are being addressed through our strategy and innovation department to make sure we've identified those kids and getting them caught up with their testing opportunities this year. So we've talked about our Renaissance data during a pandemic. The TSI during a pandemic, I've talked a little bit about it. Again, the most common way that our graduates meet CCMR is through SAT, meeting that TSI indicator. Historically, over 80% of HISD 11th graders have taken the SAT by the end of their junior year. In 2020, only 6% had taken it because the school day administration was postponed. The year before, that was 85% of juniors had taken the SAT by the end of the year. SAT cannot be given remotely. Unlike AP last year, unlike Renaissance, SAT is not allowed to be administered remotely. And some students need multiple attempts to meet the TSI cut points. It's not just a one time and they meet it. They may take SAT 2 or 3 times before they meet that TSI cut point. Participation rates are in the full report, so you can see some of those trends. Like I gave the example of 6% in 2020 versus 85% in 2019. So if we break out TSI by reading and by math, we're going to look at the reading part first. This again is the TSI overall is that orange bar. And so if you look on the bottom, the very first line on the bottom where you see the orange square and it says TSI, those are the percentages of students at 10th, 11th, and 12th grade for each year that met TSI by the end of that year. So if you'll go all the way over to the right for 2019-20, 5% of 10th graders met TSI reading by the end of year last year. 12% met it in 11th grade, and 12th graders, 45% met it by the end of year last year. And then underneath that are the 3 assessments where you can meet the TSI indicator, ACT, SAT, and TSI. And you can see our largest bar is our green bar, which is SAT. But again, you can see the difference. If you look across that green SAT, for 2018-19 11th graders, 41% in 2018-19 by the end of 11th grade had met the reading TSI. And then if you keep going across and look at 2019-20, 11th grade, only 5% had met it. So again, just magnifying those missed opportunities in looking at why we have that data dip. So moving on to the percentage of students meeting TSI for math, we see some of these same indicators. For example, for SAT 18-19, 23% of juniors had met it by the end of the year. 19-20, only 4% had. So we have to certainly make up for those opportunities because the skill sets of our students are definitely there. It's just the opportunity for testing that was eliminated because of COVID. So when we look at our students with disabilities meeting TSI in reading and math, we have our numbers there. And this is meeting the TSI just through those 3 assessments, SAT, ACT, and the TSI-A, which is the TSI assessment. There are other ways students can meet TSI, and our students with disabilities actually do quite well in some of those other areas, but this indicator was only, this progress measure is only about those 3 assessments. So again, if we look at reading by grade level, we see the same trends where in 2018-19, in fact, all the way back to 2016-17, we were pretty steady, but then that just the opportunity gap is really showing up in 19-20. And same thing on the next slide with percentage of students with disability meeting TSI math. We see the same mirrored trends as we do with the general population as well. So next steps for goal 3. For innovation in post-secondary programming, really looking at increasing the number of administrations and or even lengthening the testing window for the SAT suite of assessments to increase access for students and families. And then continuing to monitor the effectiveness of those administrations and creating more opportunities to demonstrate CCMR as needed, possibly in other areas, possibly through those extended opportunities. Next steps for college readiness, promoting the campus use of the TSIA analyzer to identify seniors now who would have been juniors last year, who should be a high priority for TSI testing in the spring as they plan for on-campus administration needs. So really identifying and focusing in on those seniors who had that missed opportunity to be able to identify them and give them those opportunities for assessment this year. And that concludes the presentation for January.
Thank you, Dr. Matney. Opening it up to questions from board colleagues, starting with Trustee Sung, and we'll do 2 rounds of 2 minutes per trustee. Trustee Sung.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I really appreciate the addition of the next steps. I think that really helps us to see how you're taking the data, considering it, and then planning for the future. And it lets us know how we can support that. I had a question about, so for goal 3, thank you for taking us through that graph and the blue and the purple and helping us understand. So it's actually a 10-point goal that kind of apples to apples. And so then my question is for the progress measures, 3.1, 3.2, they're still at 8%. Are those predictive of the goal, in your opinion?
So that is, actually we have not leveled those out at 8 points yet. That's, I referenced bringing back a K item to look at AE Local to bring in those. So those will be considered through that process. But it's definitely something that Dr. Cruz and his team are considering, knowing that we still want to get to 71, but that our baseline might be a little bit lower in some areas. But the progress measures, so overall dropped a little bit because we had to take out military and the CTE half point. But those other indicators actually did not go down. So even though the total we need to go farther. It might be that the TSI indicator actually might be fine leaving it at 8. So that's one thing that his team is considering, and we'll be able to look at when we bring that back in February.
Okay, great. I'll look forward to that. And I just want to say I'm really excited that we're really focusing on the TSIA for seniors, because there's so many students who end up doing a remedial year in college, and that's money. That can be a barrier to really finishing college. So I think that's wonderful for many reasons that we're focusing on that. Thank you. Those are all my questions at this point.
Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be real quick. I know the hour's long. I am a strong proponent for our parents to be able to sit and observe the conversations that we have in the boardroom. And in saying such, I know that the data quality sometimes, as you mentioned, is skewed for 2019 through 20. And so with that in mind, I just wanted to ask Dr. Madney if that purple dot, if you could in the legend indicate what that purple dot is, say for instance on page 11. I know you explained it, page 9, etc., where it's indicated there. We've got the target and we've got the performance indicator. So I just asked something simple, is just show what that indicator is. And the most important thing I want to ask is what I've been asking continuously as we review these goals and we talk about the 2019 to 2024 goals. Because of the fact that we've had the COVID in 2019 through 20, could we still have the goal of 8 percentage points for each one of these goals, with the goals indicated from 21 through 25? I'm sorry, 2020 and 2021 through 2025. Change that timeline so it'll include still a 5-year period with the 8-point increments of increase. Does that make sense? Dr. Madney? In other words, on page 3, if everybody look at page 3, right there it says from 2019 to 2024, 72%. Okay, so if we alleviate 19 through 20 and put 20 through 21 through 20 through 25 and still have our target and our goal of the additional 8-point increments, just change the time period, the timeline for achievement. Are we allowed to do that?
So the starting point would still be 2019 because that's the last year we had STAR data. So the starting point would still have to be 2019, but it's definitely the board's pleasure with what our ending point is and those targets.
And I'm just curious about that because of the fact that in 2020, as we all know, for the most of the year, we had the COVID, and so our data is going to be so skewed, and it's going to be the quality issues of the data is going to be so subjective.
Trustee Bluford Daniels, your 2 minutes are up.
Okay, just wanted to explain.
Dr. Lathan, do you want to address that question, please?
Yes, I mean, Trustee, Dr. Madney actually addressed it. And just to add to that, Trustee Bluford Daniels, it's not just about 1920. Remember, 2021, this whole entire year will also be impacted by COVID, but we do have to start with 19. And like Dr. Madney said, that you can change that, but at the end of the day, until we receive additional data, we won't be able to go back even and say we want to change. We might ask the board, okay, instead of 8 points, go up or down. But it would, so we'll stay the course with this. I know it sounds a little off. We'll stay the course. But also next month, we will, during the instructional continuity update, we'll look at some other data points of how we've utilized data to also make some informed decisions outside of this particular assessment based on this data quality issues. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I may also address that question, these are the 5-year goals that we set as a board, with the target date being those 8 points, with the target date being 2024. So if the board wants to change that target date, we would have to go and revise our AE local policy.
And that's what I'm suggesting, because we did that prior to COVID.
I don't know how that works with HB3. That would probably something we'd have to look into, because all of the stuff that we're voting on in E1 tonight all ties to this 2024 date that complies with HB3 for the administration. So Okay. There are no more speakers in the queue for agenda item. Oh, Trustee Cruz, followed by Trustee Flynn Villaseca.
Okay, sorry, trying to figure out this mic. Okay. So on slide 17, and thank you for all of the information. On slide 17, now I'm trying to remember what my question was. Okay, never mind. So going to slide 21. Like looking at the TSIA data, you were pointing out the 10th and 11th graders, but when we're looking at the seniors, looking at 2016-17, they were 8 percentage points, then 9 percentage points in 2017-18, then in 2018-19 they dipped down to 7, and then obviously in 19-20 I know there wasn't much opportunity. So I just feel like there wasn't really growth with the seniors around that, and wanted to understand a little more about that, and what I know that there was a mention about that in the plan moving forward, but just want a little bit more understanding around that. Dr. Lathan.
Dr. Matney.
So our target is really ensuring that our juniors have this opportunity by the end of the junior year. So that's why you see the spike in that. And it's important to remember that even though you're looking at 16, 17 to the next year, to the next year, to the next year, those are different cohorts of students. So for example, if I look at the 11th graders from 2016-17, for TSIA, they were at 6. But then the next year as seniors, they were at 9. So we actually did capture some data and grow from one year to the next. So it just depends on what the starting point is. And but each cohort has a different starting point before moving on to the next year.
Okay. And then in terms of, sorry, I should have taken better notes. In terms of the data quality concerns, and I know I asked this question last time, so I just want to be sure that nothing's changed. I think Dr. Matney had stated that the Renaissance 360, the company is going to separate out who's taking it in person and who's taking it virtually. Is that correct? Okay. So is the plan, I guess if you can tell us a little bit more about how the middle of your screener will be administered.
It will be administered the same. We had spoken, I think I want to say in November or December, about trying to encourage more students to come in face-to-face, but that was before we saw the spike in the numbers. And so parents will make that decision. And there are parents that have expressed concerns as we've tried to encourage students to come in for face-to-face for the middle of the year assessment that will be administered in 2 weeks. We still have 2 weeks before we start administration of it, but there are concerns. And so it will be the same format.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of, just other data points to look at in the interim, not having quality data, are we able to see, students' grades, which I know are somewhat subjective, or, other screeners like the snapshot data, what other data is available for us to see?
Right, that's what we're working on, and it'll be in the February instructional continuity update to show you some other examples of ways we've looked at data from a district perspective and then what campuses are doing. So you'll have that for the February presentation.
Okay, I look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
It's coming.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Trustee Flynn Villaseca.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Dr. Matney and Dr. Lathan, for the report this evening. I just have a few questions. Is the TSI something that's administered on a particular date, or is it an assessment where you can go in, sign up for a day at a host of different testing sites to take it?
It's different testing, different times that you can go and take the administration for the TSI.
Okay. Are the data that's presented here, are these data demonstrating then students that have taken it at HISD, not like after they've graduated or going to HCC or Lone Star or anything like that? Are they able to take it at other, like on site once they're planning on enrolling, or is it only in HISD? I'm begging for forgiveness on the questions because I was an elementary person, not a high school person. So.
Trustees, so to your question, Trustee Villaseca, the TSI exam, we did expand it to all of our high schools, so we expanded the number of sites. Students can take it multiple times, and we're very grateful to our partner, Houston Community College, because they have also facilitated the opportunities for students to take the exam, and furthermore, for accountability purposes, students can take it the fall right after graduating from high school, and it still counts for us. This year, also because of COVID related to TSI, we're very grateful to HCC because HCC implemented for the first time a review process where students can become TSI ready, looking at their grades and the transcript, recognizing the effect that COVID had on them. So many of our students now are not having to take the remedial coursework as a result of that.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it. And that's wonderful that HCC is helping to foster additional opportunities for our students so that they can be successful. I appreciate that. I have, okay, that helped clarify some of the questions. I know, like, I'm particularly worried about the 11th graders here. We saw that there was some dips in data from the 11th graders that are able to take any of these different assessments to be college or career ready. But they're getting hit by the testing window sort of twice, last year and this year. So I'm wondering, what are we doing to really help boost that and help them be prepared and ready for being able to have the opportunity to be successful and to know additional opportunities?
Sure, that's a wonderful question, Trustee Villaseca. So traditionally, our SAT is administered to our juniors in the spring, and of course, because of COVID, they were not able to take the exam, so we rescheduled them for October. So most of the students took it this past October, and those that were not able to take it in October, they're going to be able to take it in March in our administration as well. So we're really, we've identified those students, we're pushing it out so that even if they didn't take it, that fall offering, we're going to do it this spring.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And then the other...
Trustee Flynn Villaseca, sorry, you're out of time.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Hernandez.
Thank you, Dr. Matney, for your presentation. I had a couple of questions. One, on page 5, there's some reduced scores and something else that increased scores. And so in my head, I automatically think this is going to balance out. Can you tell us why it doesn't balance out? Page 5.
What page, Trustee Hernandez?
Page 5.
5?
5. The data quality concerns?
The question is...
So says there's concerns because of hardware, software, so that's going to reduce the scores, and then parents and other parents or other people helping students, and that would increase scores. So when I look at this, I'm like, okay, that's kind of going to balance out, right? There's something that's going to decrease scores and something that's going to increase scores. Am I reading that wrong?
Yes, you don't look at it like that. We're saying these are the issues why we saw inflated scores. And so it doesn't balance out. And I guess a better way of saying it, the way it's going to balance out is when we're all back face to face, honestly speaking. Mm-hmm. Because these are issues as long as we're in a virtual, some students in a virtual environment, some in a face-to-face. But it doesn't balance out from the standpoint of thinking about numbers. Okay. We're just saying these are the environment concerns, testing environment concerns.
Okay. And then I know Dr. Matney said, and from what you just answered from Trustee Cruz, we're going to keep on doing the testing the same way, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Matney stated that some parents did not know whether they should help their students or not on certain tests. So what extra steps are we taking in order to make sure that whoever that guardian is at home understands that?
I mean, we try. We those reminders, just like that project that students have to create and work on home, that first poster project in kindergarten. And they're supposed to just glue and paste themselves, but we know we help as parents. It's the same thing. We'll remind them of the rules as it relates to the testing environment and try to monitor it, but there's still some concerns there.
But are we doing anything different?
Like I said, as it relates to anything different, we will know who tested on campus and who tested at home. And so that will be additional information. We didn't have that access or accessibility in September when we administered the assessment.
Okay. And then I just have one more question on page 20. Again, I also am an elementary school person, so right here on one of the fourth bullet, it says TSI cut points. Does that mean that students have to reach a certain level in order for them taking that test to actually count?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just making sure of that. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers in the queue for round one, is anybody interested in additional questions in round two? Trustee Flynn Villaseca?
Thank you. Just a couple of short questions that I didn't get to ask before. The last, because of my time. Okay. Are we going to be getting the format, the HB3 format for the goals in the next report, or when is that going to start?
So yes, we have them, and so Dr. Matney, that's what we spoke about earlier today. So we do have, for the district level closing the gap targets, we do have those available, and we will make sure that they are presented to you with the February report.
Okay, thank you. And then the other one, I really appreciated the slide that you had for each of the goals highlighting next steps, and I wanted to provide that feedback. Thank you.
Trustee Sung?
Just to follow up on the Q&A, I asked if we had the preliminary CCMR data for 2020 graduates, and you said no. I was wondering when we might get that. Just preliminary. We must have some information on our 2020 students, right?
Dr. Matney?
I can answer that. Yes, so our final PEIMS file has not, I'm going to use the word final 3 times in one sentence, which is not appropriate, but it's not finalized yet. So that's where, even though it doesn't make sense that our 2020 grads are already gone, the final graduation file doesn't get submitted to TEA until sometime around this week, and so we will not actually even know the final official list of students until then. And at that point, we can start looking at some possibilities of some preliminary information, but we have to have that official set of kids first. So we're close, we're just not there yet.
Thank you. And then finally, I just wanted to say I appreciate, Dr. Lathan, that we're not forcing students whose families do not feel comfortable to come back to campus. I appreciate that.
Trustee Santos?
Thank you, President Thigard. Dr. Lathan, so you've heard me say it, I'm not going to say it again about all this testing, but I would like to know how testing for next month is going to change if and or when a bunch of students are coming back. And do you have those numbers of how many people students have enrolled for the 4th 6 weeks?
So it's a great question. As it relates to families selecting face-to-face versus virtual, the percentages are the same as they've been thus far for the past 6 weeks. So we see those numbers not increasing as it relates to the number of students coming back face-to-face. And by chance, if some of the virtual students choose to return face-to-face for their assessments, there's a schedule, so they would not all be on campus at the same time.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan. That's all.
Seeing no more trustees and Trustee Cruz.
Sorry, I wasn't ready. It's just something that Trustee Santos asked that piqued my interest. Okay, so parents do have the option. Again, I'm putting on my parent hat. So how is this communicated to parents that if they do want to bring in their child for the middle of the year assessment?
Their campuses will be communicating with them. And
Okay.
they've done that previously.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty then. Trustees, we will now move to approve the presentation given to us by the administration. May I have a motion? Is there a second?
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. Eight in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Okay, we are now ready for our student speakers. Please note that we are conducting our hearing of the community in 2 parts in order to prioritize our students who have signed up to speak. We are glad you have joined us online today in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency. The Hattie Mae White Educational Support Center is operating at a reduced capacity and the board auditorium is closed. However, it is still important that we allow time to hear from our students. In order to have your voices heard by the HISD Board of Education, you must have registered to speak with the Board Services Office by 9:30 a.m. today. Speakers should have left a telephone number when registering. District staff will call registered speakers and place them in a Zoom virtual waiting room until time for them to speak. Speakers may also have submitted written comments to be read publicly by a member of the district's administration in case there is a problem with Zoom. Should any registered speaker wish to distribute handout materials to the board, the materials must have been provided to the Board Services Office via email at boardservices@houstonisd.org by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 10 student speakers who have registered this evening or submitted comments to be read aloud during this portion of the meeting. Comments shall be limited to 300 words. Please refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Abusive statements or threats of confrontation are not permitted. Any comments in violation of these guidelines will not be read. I'm turning it over to the administration to call in our kids.
Our first student is Ash Brown. Go ahead, Ash.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for your time, board. This is my first board meeting, so please go easy on me. My name is Ash Brown. I am a junior from Carnegie Vanguard High School, and I'm calling in tonight to talk about an issue that I'm seeing in my school, and that is the lack of representation within our curriculum. Now, every year of school, we are required a history course, whether that's world history and in 4th and 7th grade Texas history. However, I've noticed that I've never been in a class where the focal point of that class was a group that was not the white race. I believe there's been a lack of representation for minority stories, minority histories, minority culture within curriculum at schools. This is why I'm formally asking you, board, to recommend that schools within our district implement an ethnic studies course, whether that be African American history and culture, Mexican American history and culture, Asian American history and culture, in order to, 1, be more inclusive, and 2, be more educational for all of the stories that exist within the amazing people that make up our country and our country as a melting pot. I have recently noticed that Dallas ISD has implemented in many of their schools African American studies classes, and I believe that the implementation of these classes would be very important for young learners who are preparing to go out into the real world, because it prepares them to deal with cultures and races and identities other than their own. So it is a deterrent of things such as ignorance, cultural ignorance, and cultural aggression, because when you're in an environment as a high school student where you can ask questions and learn about other races and other cultures, then it is less of a shock for you when you matriculate into the real world. So once again, board, I would like to ask formally that you make a recommendation to the high schools within Houston ISD to implement at least one ethnic studies course.
Our next speaker is Alexavier Mendoza. Go ahead, Alexavier.
Good evening, board. Good evening, board. Today I come to speak about an important issue, COVID-19 in our school district. As a student who tested positive for COVID-19, it was tough for my family and myself. Seeing my mother gasping for air was heartbreaking. Being depressed for a week, not wanting to do a single thing but lay in my bed and saying to myself, we're going to get through this. When I would eat my food, it would taste like a piece of cardboard, and to this day, I have yet to get my taste back. The long-term effects are serious. For example, shortness of breath, cough, joint pain, chest pain. Imagine how other students whose loved ones passed away and just have their siblings right now is very painful and tragic to hear about on the news every day. This week alone, our state passed 2 million cases, the city passed 130,000 cases, our district passed 1,600 cases, and Harris County's COVID-19 positivity rate has been 20% for 14 days straight. But our district has failed to switch our threat level to red, where it states in the reopening plan. Red signifies a severe and uncontrolled level of COVID-19 in the community as determined by local health officials. Our local health officials stated multiple times that it's getting uncontrollable. Are you waiting for it to get out of control in order to act? This district needs to transition to 100% virtual learning now. This administration has two options, a death wish or to keep the students, teachers, staff, and community safe. We all know what their option is. This district cannot afford to lose funding, but I cannot afford to lose another family member. We can rebuild the economy. I cannot help rebuild one of my family members. I came to speak a couple months ago and compared the same administration to the Trump administration. And right now you are following the exact steps as him, not caring about anyone but yourselves. Trustees, remember who elected you in the position you're in right now. Administration, remember who you work for and act now. We cannot afford another day losing innocent lives and catching COVID. Also, I support Trustee Sung for board president. Thanks.
Thank you. Isabella Vasquez. Go ahead, Isabella.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, trustees and Dr. Lathan. My name is Isabella Vasquez, and I'm a junior at DeBakey High School for Health Professions. I'm here once again to talk about student voice on the district level. I want to start off by thanking trustees Dygard, Santos, and Sung, who have taken the time to directly hear from the youth in HISD and encouraging us that our voice does matter, but oftentimes students feel unsupported or unimportant by other authority figures in our district. Your help did not go unnoticed. Over the summer and at the beginning of the school year, student voice was virtually non-existent, mostly due to the lack of widespread support by the district. After about the first 3 weeks of school, adults from out-of-state organizations had completely taken over what was once Youth Voice in HISD. When we brought this up to HISD administration, nothing was done. We felt helpless, but not surprised that our voice could be taken away that quickly without our say and with no aid from the people who are supposed to be looking out for our best interests. Since then, many students have been struggling to find a platform within the district they can go to voice their concerns and opinions. My peers and I have since then decided to launch a separate organization on February 1st called Houston Student Union to provide that platform, but it's concerning that HISD has not taken the initiative to back up their own students after knowing about these issues for several months now. I hope you all feel some sense of urgency for this topic, because even the smallest sign of support to the youth can communicate that you value and care about our voice. Good luck on board elections, and thank you.
Thank you. Eli Johns Kroll. Go ahead, Eli.
Hello, my name is Eli Johns Kroll. I am a senior at Kinder High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. I was the first student at my school to get my name changed on Microsoft Teams and across district programs under HISD's new name change policy. As a transgender student, seeing my dead name every day during virtual learning and having it displayed to both my teachers and my peers significantly increased my daily social dysphoria. Having my real name displayed to myself and others on Teams is an incredibly gender-affirming experience every day. Therefore, I want to thank the administration for making it possible. Allowing students to change their display name is incredibly validating for all students who identify with their legal names. or who do not identify with their legal names, both trans and cisgender. The administration has improved the day-to-day school experience for many students in HISD, myself included. Thank you very much for making this change possible. I, along with many other HISD students, am immeasurably grateful to the district for the implementation of this new policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli. Christine Wrong.
Having my real name displayed to myself and others on Teams is an incredibly gender.
Go ahead, Christine, and please mute the background.
Allowing students to change their display name is incredibly validating.
Go ahead, Christine. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening, board members. My name is Christine Wrong, and I'm a senior at the Kinder High School for the Performing and Visual Arts and one of the district leads for Diversify Our Narrative HISD. Diversify Our Narrative HISD's mission is to include anti-racist and diverse texts within the high school English curriculums in the Houston Independent School District. Through the surge of the Black Lives Matter movement and recent political events, it has been made evident that racial injustice and ignorance dominate our society greatly. Therefore, we recognize that modifying our education system and the curriculum we teach can promote positive progression. Modifying what we teach in schools is the first step in fostering a more empathetic youth and future. In order to unteach racism, we aim to promote anti-racism and diversity through the several recommendations on our petition. Currently, our petition has over 1,000 signatures with students, teachers, and community members represented from 35 different HISD high schools, and we aim to continue to educate and impact. We recognize the board's hard work and intend to work with the board members to assist in creating tangible solutions on this matter. The 4 other students representing Dawn here today will go in depth on the first 4 recommendations on our petition, our comprehensive reading recommendations list, teacher autonomy, and how we aim to deal with the various obstacles we may face throughout the process. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alex DeGreiner. Go ahead, Alex.
Hello, HISD board. My name is Alexander DeGreiner, and I am a junior in the high school for the Performing and Visual Arts. I'm one of the members of the local organization outreach committee for Diversify Our Narrative. Diversify Our Narrative wants to help the board solve these issues that we find in our classrooms through a few recommendations. Diversify Our Narrative recommends at least one book in every English, literature, and composition class be by a person of color, as well as at least one book or short story in every English literature class be about a person, people of color's experience, written by a person of color. Diversify Our Narrative also proposed that at least one of the books or short stories be about the Black experience, due to the anti-Blackness that has existed since the inception of our nation, and because of the recent events that have happened in America. A few weeks ago, the RASA podcast had an episode featuring Diversify Our Narrative HISD. RASA is made up of college students from Rice, and Diversify Our Narrative thought it would be a great idea to talk to college students who had been in high school before about our organization, goals, and recommendations. The college students thought that this was a great idea and expressed on multiple occasions that they would have loved having this curriculum while they were in high school. They said that having such a curriculum in their high school would have been better prepared them for college, as well as being able to open up to different authors and different cultures. My colleague will next talk about more recommendations from Diversify Our Narrative about the reading list, as well as teacher autonomy. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Harper. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Harper, and I'm a freshman at Houston Academy for International Studies. Currently, I'm one of the heads for our publicity team at Dawn HISD. Continuing on based on my previous members stated in our petition recommendations, we additionally want to emphasize teacher autonomy. What do we mean by this? We mean that because we understand the demand of teachers' workload, we want to accommodate and give as much flexibility to teachers as possible. Currently, with the recommended reading list given to teachers, they might feel they do not have the ability to be innovative. Hello?
Yes, keep going, please.
Currently, with the curriculum we have right now, teachers may not feel they have the ability to be innovative or flexible. This is why we recommend short stories in addition to books. In addition, we aim to provide teachers with the means to decide what their students learn in the classroom. By providing teachers with the space to teach the diverse curriculum of their choice, we can ensure that students feel safe in their learning environment and are getting more out of their education regarding diversity and inclusiveness. Our provided reading list originated from the National Diversify Our Narrative organization founded in California by 2 Stanford students. This list includes poems, articles, podcasts, and short stories to examine the history of English classrooms. The list also includes the book split into basic generic themes for teachers along with charts of information about the book. Over 3 months, the book's recommendations were compiled by students or with alongside many different teachers who taught in subjects like English, art, history, special education, and etc. Failure is on books that met our proposal but are still school appropriate. My colleagues will now talk about funding and our new curriculum with directors.
Thank you. Alexa Halim.
Hello, my name is Alexa Halim, and I'm a senior at Kinder HSPVA. I am head of local organization outreach for Diversify Our Narrative. In October, I, along with Seva Rahman and Christine Rong, had the pleasure of meeting with the Officer of Secondary Curriculum and Development, English Language Arts Director of Secondary Curriculum and Development, and Director of Secondary Social Studies Curriculum and Development. We were happy to hear that they were in full support of our mission and have been working to implement more diverse perspectives in the curriculum. They gave us feedback on our petition and informed us about some challenges we would face within HISD. In regards to funding, we recognize it would be difficult to provide schools with access to physical copies of our recommended books. They introduced us to Macambia, the centralized online database for ebooks in HISD, where we can find texts that align with our recommendations and present to teachers to implement in their curriculums. We hope to work with board member for District 7, Ann Sung, who's worked on the budget committees to either consider an allotment of the budget towards providing class sets of our recommended books to classrooms across HISD or an expansion of Macambia. Another aspect we were not aware of was the decentralization in HISD. In the future, we hope to work with individual schools through workshops and seminars with students and teachers to ensure the implementation of the recommendations of the curriculum directors. In collaboration with both curriculum directors and you, the board, we hope to succeed in implementing more anti-racist and diverse texts in the curriculums for HISD. Thank you.
Thank you. Seva Rahman. Go ahead, please,
Good
Seva.
evening, board members. My name is Seva Rahman, and I'm a junior at Kinder High School for the Performing and Visual Arts and the 2nd District Lead for Diversify Our Narrative HISD. In order to implement these changes in our district's curriculum, we hope to work alongside the Board of Education closely. Over the course of 5 months, Diversify Our Narrative HISD has gained the support of Houston Public Media, The Buzz Magazine, and 1,000 HISD parents, teachers, and students. As we're taking the next steps in achieving these changes, we hope to actively meet with the Board of Education to share the entirety of our petition and discuss the potential challenges that we may need to consider as we take the next steps towards creating a more safe and inclusive learning environment for the young people of color in our country. We appreciate all of the tireless work that the board has done to ensure a safe and equitable environment for HISD students, and we'd be thrilled to support the board in helping move our curriculum in a more progressive and inclusive direction. Finally, we'd like to thank the Board of Trustees for providing students with this platform to address issues they are passionate about. Like you, we hope to empower students to use their voices regardless of race, ethnicity, and/or background. We hope to meet with you soon, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
David Zuhl. Good evening, Board President, Interim Superintendent, and trustee members. In honor of Board Recognition Month and on behalf of the students of HISD, I would like to formally thank all of you for the hard work you have done. However, that being said, I urge everyone on this board to reimagine the way student voice is managed, and I call upon the interim superintendent to take responsibility and restructure the HISD Congress so that she may have a formal advising board as previous Superintendent Richard Carranza once had and the superintendent before him, Terry Greer. It is a shame to realize that when the interim superintendent needs student input, it is solely on issues that come before the board on her personal agenda and not on the agenda of her students. We need to amplify student voice as we once did in 2015, but make it sustainable and long-term this time. Trustee members, when you chose Mrs. Green-Lathan as interim superintendent, it was because she embodied the values and goals that the district needed, and now the students of the district are asking for a platform to voice their opinion. You may have been elected to this position to finalize the decisions of the district, but at the end, the students are the consequences of your actions, and how they turn out in an academic setting and as citizens within our society will be based on whether you view them as members of this body or as products of a system. Don't delay this any longer. Take action and make an impact. Let us start to fulfill Trustee Guidry's first goal of reconnecting the board members with their school children.
That concludes the student portion of hearing of the community.
Thank you, Ms. Dimmitt, and thank you to our students for sharing your thoughts tonight. All right, moving on, we will now consider. Okay, we will move on to the agenda items. For the record, let it be reflected that attachments to item A2A were revised. The administration announced that before our discussion on that item already. Attachments to item E1 were added after the agenda was printed. Board policy requires trustees to excuse themselves and abstain from all discussion and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve a conflict of interest. As defined in board policy BBFA local, a conflict of interest is any circumstance that could cast doubt on a trustee's ability to act with total objectivity with regard to the district's interests. We will now consider items held for abstention and or discussion. Each month, all action items begin on the consent agenda. If a trustee would like an item held from consent, they need to notify the district chief of staff, Sylvia Trin, by 8 a.m. on the Monday prior to the voting meeting. H2 and I1A were held for abstentions, and E1 was held from the consent agenda. E1, approval of school goals aligned to the district's newly adopted board goals. H2, authority to negotiate, execute, and amend an agreement with the Spark School Park Program for the improvement and construction of Spark Parks at various campuses. Agenda item I1 is approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. There's only one specific project, and correct me, Ms. McBride, we're not pulling the entire agenda item I1 from consent. We are only pulling project number 21-10-05-09, which is cooperative and HVAC services, repairs, preventive maintenance, and window and portable AC units and parts. So our first item held from consent is E1, approval of school goals aligned to the district's newly adopted board goals.
I want to add 3 more things to pulling from the consent agenda.
You would have to make a motion, and it needs to be seconded and approved by your colleagues.
Okay, I'd like to, I'm moving to pull G1, G2, and I2, please.
G1, G2, and I2?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on pulling the items from consent?
I'm in the queue.
I see, so Santos and Hernandez, are you in the queue for this or for something earlier?
I'm in the queue for this.
Okay, Trustee Hernandez?
I would like to say that I would like for every one of my colleagues to follow board operating procedures, which means we have a deadline of pulling the items by Monday at 8 a.m. And if those procedures were not followed, I would like to suggest to my colleagues to vote down this move.
Trustee Santos?
Yes. So there was something that the speakers spoke about tonight that prompted me to move that. And trust me, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but it is my right as an elected official to do my governing duty and make sure that we can still pull the agenda.
I'm sorry, Trustee Santos, you were cutting in and out, but if your question was, do you have a right to pull things from consent, it depends on what your board operating procedures are. Some bodies develop a consent agenda and on the day of the regular board meeting go around and decide what to pull from consent. This board has adopted an operating procedure, not only informally but formally, the board operating procedures manual, where that is done prior to the regular meeting, and that was agreed upon by the
if we have information or delete information, we get it at the last minute. I mean, that's within our right, I believe, but I will get separate legal opinion that of our board counsel. Thank you.
And Trustee Santos, I just want to be clear, it's not that the members are telling you that you can't, but the procedure is if you do it after the deadline, then moving it off the consent agenda just requires a motion, a second, and a vote. So there's still a vehicle if you miss the deadline, but it requires a motion, a second, and a vote.
Trustee Sung?
Lisa just covered what I was going to say. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers in the queue, please vote. I am not going to be the deciding vote. Trustee Bluford Daniels?
Yes.
5-4, 4 against, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. And I just want to remind my colleagues, if there's ever a doubt and you're waiting for a question to be answered, to please email Sylvia Trin before 8 a.m. on Monday. It's better to pull it and then say you don't need it pulled than it is the other way around. Alrighty. So I need to now amend the script. So we have, it'll be E1 followed by G1, G2, H2, I1, but only that project of I1, and then I2. Correct? Okay. Alrighty. So starting with agenda item E1. Questions or comments from my colleagues on agenda item E1 before we vote on it? Excuse me, no, we need a motion. Is there a motion to approve agenda item E1?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Trustee Cruz and board services, please start timers. 1 minute, 1 round.
Sorry, I forget that I've got this. Okay. So, referencing the Q&A document on page 2. So I'm trying to understand the 4 groups. So did campuses set their goals, or did the administration, or was it done in tandem? How did that work?
So the goals, as it relates to, was created by Research and Accountability based on the board goals and then based on the campus level data.
Okay, so the school...
They developed their strategies.
Got it. Okay, so I guess my question is, I mean, I understand, the different buckets, but my concern is, especially with like group 1, or even, gosh, all of the groups except 4, it just seems that the bar is set so low, if we're saying to only move 3 percentage points. And when I look at the data for some of these schools, and they had, and I understand our baseline is 2019, but so we don't have 2020 to compare. I am going to reference 2018, at least in terms of, if a school grew pretty significantly, and then we're going to say, oh, they're only going to grow 3 percentage points until 2024. It just seems like...
Trustee Cruz?
Yeah.
You're out of time. Can you wrap
Already?
it up, please?
Shoot.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Is Dr. Matney on? Dr. Matney, did you hear Trustee Cruz's comment or concern as it relates to the percentages?
Yes, ma'am. So we looked at specifically 2019. 2018 is included there in order to give you 2 years of data. But 2019 was the baseline year that we set the targets and the methodology that has been referenced on page 2 of the Q&A document in order to scale up appropriately depending on where 2019 fell within those bands. If they were already at the district target, that 8-point increase that the district has to see, if they were already there, then that of course falls in group 2 and so forth.
Next trustee in the crew, the queue is trustee Flynn-Villaseca.
Thank you, Madam President. Quick question regarding the data that was sent over to the trustees as backup and which is published in like 1,400 pages of agenda packet this month. Are all schools required to have these files, these plans as submission to the state?
So and they won't be submitted to the state. We'll be posting them. And so the elementary campuses and the high school campuses based on the board, the early literacy goal, the early math goal, and then the CCMR.
Okay. Because I was having issues extracting the data file that came through, the zip file that came through on Monday. I have a hard copy of not the whole 1,400 pages, but districts. I noticed that the middle schools were not in there, so thanks for explaining that. But I also didn't see a couple of elementary schools. And I just want to make sure that everything is complete. Or I don't know if there's going to be another round of approval for this next month. And yeah. So those are my questions / comments.
So if there's a particular school that you're not seeing, please let us know because they might have gotten in the wrong trustees district because we found one I know last night. So if you just let us know the schools. This is it as it relates to the approval or unless the board holds another meeting, but they need to be approved by January 31st per TEA guidelines.
Okay. Would you like me to email them or say the schools right now?
You're welcome to say the schools right now so that when the team, the area soups are out in the hallway, they're listening so they can find what page numbers the schools are on.
Ashford Elementary School and Ed White.
Oh, you had like you had a real list. This is 2. I was ready to really.
I do.
That's good. 2 is good. List like, oh Lord. Okay, we will locate those.
Thank you.
What name? It was placed in District 6. Huh? Yeah, I need to speak up. I can't read your list. Ashford is listed under District 6. It was listed under District 6.
That's District 6. I represent District 6.
What's there?
It's not in the hard copy. I can extract it. Neither of those schools were. So if that could be found or emailed, I would appreciate it. And again, since I was having issues extracting, I would want to do the diligence for all sections because we represent everybody in the guys. We just wanted to make sure that all our bases are covered and just wanted to explain what I have available to me.
Seeing Trustee Sung, are you next in the queue?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's make sure Dr. Lathan's ready. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for answering the questions in the Q&A. So with regards to the first question, I shared kind of the planning for these campus targets at a community meeting, and I got questions about group 2 and group 3, kind of those groups in the middle where, you know, it's kind of we're anchoring to a 3-point growth over the 5 years, and I know it's really just 3 years, but it's and I thought about it. It seems to me that, you know, we're putting a lot of pressure on schools that are below target. You know, appropriately we want them to grow, but not very much expectation on schools that have met that target. And I think that 50% is kind of, you know, arbitrary in some ways, right? For schools that can grow more, I wonder if 3% is the right kind of anchor. So wanted to get some more, ask a little bit more about where that 3% came from.
Dr. Matney, would you share, but I also would like to share, trustees, that, our principals expressed some concerns. And so when the preliminary data was shared with them during our discussions in November, and they were working after the board had approved their goals, there were concerns, and all of it, of course, ties back to almost, like I said, a year and a half loss of instructional time in a face-to-face environment. And so I do want to share that, and I don't want us to close out this meeting without going on record that was a major concern shared by principals that bowled up also through from their teachers. So, Dr. Matney, can you talk about the 3 percentage points, please?
Yes, absolutely. So when we looked at the vast majority of the data, we had to really try to figure out a methodology that incorporated where campuses were currently, honor where they were, whether they were sitting already at 100% or sitting at 10%, and figure out a way to equitably scale that up. In fact, we even had conversations with our counterparts that work with our TAD system, with school leader appraisal scorecards. So what methodology are they using there, where school leaders are used to a similar methodology? So when we had conversations with them, this is not to replace the school leader appraisal. These are targets for school leaders to be identifying, are they on track for making significant progress and making progress along the way in each student group and overall for their campus, whether it's third grade reading, third grade math, or CCMR. So when we looked at that methodology for school leader appraisal scorecard, it was in this same vein of, for example, group 1, if a school leader is already at that 100% or already in that top tier, then how do we address it? We didn't want to make it something so completely different for school leaders. We wanted it to make sense to them and mesh with something that they are already used to looking at. So that's where the philosophy came from, is looking at that's gone through multiple layers of meetings and conversations. We looked at that 3-point total because a lot of those campuses were sitting at, for example, 95 or 91, where if you're already there, it's harder to make some of those tiny gains. And depending on the campus size, and we looked at that as well, it might take fewer kids that make some of those bigger gains. When we got to the lower level, it does look like, wait a minute, our lower achieving schools are having to bear the brunt of this. And although it definitely looks like that, ultimately, we're not going to achieve our 8-point increases as a district without that heavy lift, because we have a lot of students at those schools in that group 4. And unless we're making those significant gains, although we can't directly extrapolate out because we don't know the denominators every year of who's testing, we can reasonably say, unless we have those heavy lists from group 4, we're not going to get there just based on the number of schools. So although group 2 and 3, it may appear that they're not having to lift as heavily, when you look at some of the numbers and how it works out, it's much more equitable than, it's not just a quarter. It works out a little bit differently than that.
Okay, I say I have 1 second left. So let me just say, to go from 50% to 53%, which is the case for at least one of the schools I looked at, seems a little off.
So I have a quick question, and that is, so we are approving, in compliance with Texas Education Code regarding HP3, this is the school level annual targets and the annual targets for the student groups for each campus. A part of this process, and I want to make sure it isn't missed, is for us to also have the district level annual targets and student group annual targets. I don't want to hold this item up, but could that be brought to the board at our like, how do we make sure that that's approved in all of this as well?
That's what I shared earlier. It'll be with our February. It'll be brought to the board the
Got it.
February
Thank you.
agenda.
I'm sorry if I missed that.
That's okay. And
Thank
also,
you.
Trustee Villaseca, page 78 of the file we emailed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I found Ed White, but not Ashford yet. But thank you. Yes.
And also, I was remiss. Usually, we only do one round of 1 minute for follow-up questions for voting items at the regular meeting. But this was an agenda item where we didn't have, and it's a pretty big agenda item that we didn't have when we received the rest of our agenda. So I'll entertain a second round if there are still some remaining questions that you need answered before you can make your decision to vote yes or no. If it's just a follow-up question about it, let's send that in as a referral. But if you need the question answered before you vote, go ahead. Trustee Cruz?
Okay, thank you. That's why the minute went by so fast. I thought it was 2. Okay, so I echo the same concern as Trustee Sung, and that's what I was trying to get out initially. I'm looking at the data, and I understand the explanation, Dr. Matney, and thank you for that. It's definitely clear, but it doesn't, I still can't wrap my head around how we're only expecting, and I understand we're in a pandemic, but I feel like we're going to where do we tell parents and kids that we're not going to teach them how to read? I'm looking at specifically the third grade data. I have comments about the other ones, but it's just such a low bar to me when we're saying we're only going to move. There's some schools that it seemed like they were a little bit, there was a little bit bigger of a jump, and I don't know if that was a school decision or research and accountability, but I'm definitely concerned about 3 groups being only expected to move 3 percentage points when we're talking about student literacy levels, which equates to their life trajectories and the opportunities that they have. Kids in 3rd grade.
Cruz. Sorry, you're out of time.
Shoot.
Noted. We've given you the explanation, but other than going and changing and raising all of these up, we're not telling any parent that we're not teaching their child to read, but we also have to be realistic. And honestly speaking, I think we talked about this in November and December. We all want normacy, but not even normacy as it relates to academics, but our children being able to interact socially and address the emotional issues. And I can understand when we're back in a true face-to-face environment, if we need to come back and make adjustments, we do that. But to tell principals and teachers, okay, we're going to put 10%, we're going to put, just because we put, and this is just Grenita Lathan speaking, we can put any number down. If you want to put a 20% jump, but we have to also be realistic about what we're going to do. And if we're really going to allow data to drive what happens for our students and instruction, then we respond to the data and we make the adjustments when we need to. Because we were all set, I'll be honest with you, prepared to try to really promote students coming back in January. We're trying to put things in place, more and more students. That's not going to be our reality, at least for another 2 to 3 months, because the numbers keep spiking. We're more concerned now about just keeping everyone safe and healthy and being able to get them online, or those children who are coming in face to face. So I still think there needs to be, we need to all be empathetic to what the situation is. And annually, as we revisit, like we always do in August when we're developing the district improvement plan and school improvement plans, we make those necessary revisions. But to make them now in January in the middle of a pandemic, I think that would just not be empathetic to our families and our staff members.
And trustees in the queue, just remember, try and limit your questions to things you need to get an answer to make your decision to vote. Trustee Guidry?
Thank you, President Dygard. Dr. Lathan, just because we have the number in here, that's not a limit, right? They can go above that amount.
Right, they go above that, and our schools do go above that.
Okay. And thank you for this report, but again, it was 1,400 pages, so I just want to make sure I understand. I love the idea of the progress monitoring tool. Is that something that's going to come back to us, and who's going to do the monitoring?
Great question. So the progress monitoring, as we provide updates to the board, so we will be updating these plans, and we provide an update to the board. So the progress monitoring and oversight of that is our schools office through our school school support officers and our area superintendents.
So technically, our first report would be, September of this year?
September, middle of the year updates, and then our annual update normally is in August. That's what we knew. So September, more than likely September, yes, because everything is out with student assessments and everything.
Thank you.
Trustee Blueford Daniels.
Thank you. Other than like today, I stopped at the store and there was a car with a mother and a niece with 4 kids in there. And I asked, this is the middle of the day on my way here, 1 o'clock, and none of them had the devices. So what can I do as a trustee to assist the district to try and help meet these goals, to help get these kids focused on their devices to meet these goals? Because needless to say, I explained to the mother and the niece how important it was to have those kids on those devices right then. So what else can I do as a trustee to assist you?
Honestly speaking, that is it, educating those when you encounter situations like that, but also allowing us to do our jobs and understanding. Like I said, I'll go back to, I don't shy away from speaking up when I know I need to speak up, but being empathetic and understanding where we are as a district and as a society right now.
Not yet. Doesn't mean you have to use it though.
I'm asking that question. I'm asking that question. Now I didn't have to use it, but I want to use it because we've got to not just rely on the old method of doing things, especially in this environment. Obviously, things have changed, so we've got to be creative and continue to engage and identify those kids that we see without devices and ask those hard questions, as opposed to waiting for Ms. Tran or somebody to come to ask us questions, or even the principal. They don't see these kids. But that's one way that we as trustees can be engaged as well. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers in the queue for this item, trustees, please vote. Eight in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Next item held from consent is agenda item G1. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? We're on agenda item G1. Any discussion? Trustee Santos, did you pull this? Okay. Trustee Santos?
Thank you, President Zygarde. I guess I just want to say that G1 and G2, I've heard so much from teachers within the last 2 days. And right now they're absolutely at an low where subs can't be in place, where schools are being exhausted, everything. This is just for G1 and G2. I can't vote for these items because our teachers' morale is below what you can possibly imagine right now. And I know that Dr. Lathan, respecting your authority as the interim superintendent, I just want to say that this is something that I can't vote for because our teachers in the district feel some kind of way right now.
Seeing no further speakers in the queue, please vote. Motion passes 8 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Next item held from consent is agenda item G2. Seeing no speakers in the queue, please vote. 8 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Next item held from consent is agenda item H2, authority to negotiate, execute, and amend an agreement with Spark School Park Program for the improvement and construction of Spark Parks at various campuses. May I have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing no speakers in the queue, please vote. Eight in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. Motion passes. Next item in the queue is agenda item I1, the specific project number 21-10-05-09, cooperative/HVAC services, repairs, preventive maintenance, and window and portable AC units and parts. This project is being held to accommodate Trustee Flynn Villaseca's abstention from voting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing no speakers in the queue, please vote. Motion passes. 8 in favor, 1 opposed, 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. Our next item held from consent is agenda item I2. Is there a motion?
I move that we delay this vote until February 11th.
There has to be a motion to put it on the table first, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move to put the vote onto the table, please.
You have to move for us to consider the item first, right? Yeah. You have to move for us to, there has to be a motion and second for us to consider the item before you can make the motion you're trying to make. Is there a motion?
I retracted my thing and said so moved. Put it on the table.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Trustee Santos?
I was just going to ask Dr. Lathan, I've heard a lot of feedback, and I don't know if maybe there was some communication, but my understanding, the teachers union and the teachers were not informed of this appraisal system, but they want to be partners and or collaborate, just to have a seat at the table. And I was wondering if we could move this until February 11th so that we can hear everybody's perspective on this.
So this actually was discussed through consultation. Ms. Dimmick, would you share the update from the consultation discussions? Thank you.
So the item was on the agenda for our last consultation, but we originally talked about it with the compensation committee many months ago. We did not go into too much detail this time at consultation because we have not moved forward, because the board hasn't approved yet for us to move forward with the companies. So there was really not a lot of discussion and no pushback regarding this.
So would that, Dr. Lathan, delaying the vote for another 2 weeks, is that going to hurt?
It's beyond 2 weeks. You'll be so let me, since you're asking me, it is concerning. It would not look good on us as a district when we've engaged and received the support to be able to move forward so we can capitalize off of possibly receiving these the teacher incentive allotment dollars from the state. However, it's the board's decision if you vote for this item or you vote against it. The process does not begin as it relates to meeting with our committee, starting to gather that, and as a part of the committee are teacher association representatives. So it's up to the board what happens next.
Any further questions, Trustee Santos?
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Guidry?
Thank you, President Dygard. Just to be clear, Dr. Lathan, HISD will have a committee at the table with Katamba to write out any of these goals, correct?
That's correct. It's a whole process. It's through a committee. But they're not decision makers. The committee members are the decision makers.
Thank you.
Trustee Cruz?
I would just like to state that the teacher incentive allotment actually provides quite a large stipend to teachers that qualify in this program. It would be $3,000 to $31,000 annually. We talk about raising teacher salaries. This is a way that the state has set up for teachers to receive additional money. I recognize that there are concerns. It's not a perfect program, but it is what we have in front of us, and I think with a robust process we can get to a really good place. So I just want to remind colleagues about that opportunity that does exist in the state for bringing in tons and tons of money to teachers' pockets. Thank you.
Trustee Hernandez?
I also want to reiterate what we were told last time, that 90% of these funds will be spent on teacher compensation, and that's very important to me because I know that our teachers need to be compensated in the district. Thank you.
Trustee Sung?
Is it a requirement that school districts use a consultant in order to develop their TIA plan?
It's not a requirement, but they have supported other districts across the state and also in our region. And for example, writing a great plan and being able to make sure you have everything in place supports bringing in additional dollars for our teachers. And, some districts have been able to get over $20 million to be able, once again, as Trustee Hernandez said, to go into teachers' pockets as it relates to compensation.
And then just as a follow-up to one of the questions in the Q&A, initially when we talked, I think in the original board item, it said that this was the purpose was to develop a teacher evaluation system. And then in the Q&A, it says now the purpose is to design and implement a teacher designation system. If you could just kind of explain, because we've gone back and forth between designation system, evaluation, which one is the purpose of this?
So part of the requirements for TIA is teacher observations and a measurement of student growth. So our current evaluation system does capture teacher observations, obviously, and it does capture student growth, but not for all teachers. So in order for teachers to qualify for the designation, they would have to have student growth measures as part of the qualifications for the funds under TIA.
Okay, so we're hoping that we get out of this not just the designation system, but also like a changed evaluation system for all teachers. Am I understanding the purpose of this?
The purpose is not to change, the actual purpose is not to change the evaluation, it is to improve the evaluation. And as an example, one of the things is that an improvement that we can do in collaboration with the TIA initiative is to have better collaboration of our teacher observations and similar measures or the same measures for all teachers who teach the same subject in the same grade level.
Trustee Santos?
Thank you, President Dygard. I just want to remind my colleagues that everything that comes from the state is not necessarily healthy for our students. Remember, this is the same state that pits charter schools versus traditional public schools. So just be careful, because EBOS and merit-based pay runs off a lot of good teachers that, again, you can't differentiate between English language learner, ESL teacher, traditional, whatever, on-level teacher. It's going to scare teachers away from the teaching profession. Even we have a shortage of teachers here in the U.S. now. And this EBOS, all these evaluations basically get teachers fired. So I just cannot, in my right mind, without having more information regarding this evaluation system, vote for merit-based pay when our teachers deserve so much better than that. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers in the queue, please vote. Oh, Trustee Flynn-Villaseca, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question too. I know that the work would not start unless this agenda item is passed, but is there a way to build in some kind of requirements as far as what stakeholder engagement will look like, who gets a seat at the table, so that there is inclusiveness and so that lessons can be learned from the past? Because I know that there were issues in the past. We do. And I just want to make sure, is there any way to have that part of the discussion of the process, or at least it's out in the universe and public right now that is
But
one.
that's a part of the process. And so you engage in stakeholders, those key people, campus administrators, teachers, group leaders, or team leads. That's just a part of the process, as part of the teacher incentive allotment committee. And so that's just part of the process.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers in the queue, please vote. Seven in favor, 3 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. 6. Sorry, 6. Well, one of them keeps flipping back and forth.
I haven't touched it.
Okay, so it's 7.
Okay. It kept flipping back and forth. Okay, Trustee Blue for Daniels, what's reflected on the screen is accurate for you?
I actually hit against, but it bounced back to 4.
Okay, so is it correct now, Trustee Blue for Daniels? Okay, so 6 in favor, 3 opposed, 0 abstentions, motion passes. Consideration to accept the balance of today's agenda by consensus. We are now ready to consider. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the agenda review meeting held on January 7th and special meetings held on January 4th, 6th, and 9th of 2021?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. We are now ready to consider items discussed in closed session. Are there any motions?
I move that the board approve the contract between the district and the Texas Education Agency for special education conservators and authorize the board president and the board secretary to execute same effective January 15th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Second.
9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Next item.
I move that the board authorize the engagement of Jean Locke for redistricting services and to authorize the district's general counsel to negotiate and execute a contract for such services effective January 15th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote.
So moved.
9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Trustee Santos, you have a delay, and I want to make sure that it's remedied because I don't want you accidentally voting for the wrong item. Are you there?
I think that I'm here. It's delayed on your end.
I think it's catching up. Okay, I was just concerned. Just wanted to check. All right, next item.
I move that the board authorize the district to settle the special education matter of HD, BNF, MD, and CD versus Houston Independent School District before the Texas Education Agency, TEA docket number 020-SE-0920, on the terms discussed in closed session, effective January 15th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Second.
Motion passes. 9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Next item, please.
I move that the board authorize the district attorneys to settle the subrogation lien of Jackie Thornton against Jennifer Daniel Roberts and Progressive Insurance for workers' compensation benefits. Progressive Insurance claim number 204-393-238 on the terms discussed in closed session, effective January 15th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Next item, please.
I move that the board approve a finding of no good cause for educators to resign or abandon employment contracts without district consent under sections 21.105, C, 21.106, C, or 21.210C of the Texas Education Code, as discussed in closed session, and authorize the interim superintendent or her designee to submit a written complaint to SBEC to impose sanctions, effective January 15th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Second.
Eight in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Next item, please.
I move that the board approve the balance of the closed session of personnel agenda, including specifically that the board approve separation and release agreements as discussed in closed session, effective January 15th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes. 8 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Next item. That's it. Yay. All right. We have now come to the portion of our meeting where we normally hear from our community. We are glad. I'm not going to repeat this whole thing. Same things I said earlier today. Please refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Abusive statements or threats of confrontation are not permitted. Any comments in violation of these guidelines will not be read. We have 4 members of the community who have signed up tonight, and comments shall be limited to 300 words or 2 minutes each.
Our first speaker is Jason Oliver. Go ahead, Mr. Oliver.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Okay, great. Good evening and Happy New Year. Thank you for having me. I'm really concerned about wellness for teachers and students during this time, and I'm thinking about the district improvement plan and ways to create measurable wellness outcomes for HISD. So I first want to ask if there's an expected date for when the revised plan will be posted for the 2021 school year. And I'm also just hope that the timeline for revision and adoption will be provided for people that are trying to provide input, because the document is really important. I shared a handout for the board, but a few things I think are really important and probably won't be able to be included in the plan, but can be really beneficial as we're thinking forward, are to implement teacher and principal working condition surveys to track staff mental health. I provided some examples also to implement a campus climate survey to assess the SEL needs for students. And then third, to prioritize divestment from school policing in accordance with national best practices and shift funding to mental health counselors according to ASBA recommended ratios. So we need clear wellness goals and outcomes for both teachers and students now more than ever. None of this is really reflected in the draft district improvement plan beyond some limited teacher retention and student risk information. And so I think these surveys in particular can provide real benchmarks. I've provided more details and suggestions. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I hope you'll strongly consider these recommendations, as all three can be implemented at low or no financial cost to HISD. I hope I stay within the time. I want to let you all get to bed.
Thank you. Toby Fulmer, I would like to request that HISD reconsider its recent decision to cancel sub-varsity and non-district sports. This result is detrimental to student athletes and their future collegiate playing opportunities. More important, absent medical and/or scientific data, the decision is not warranted. The spread of the virus, particularly in outdoor sports, is minimal and in large part preventable.
Melissa Matos. As a past public school student and a parent of a student, I wanted to speak about the district's decision to remove private preschools from public school campuses. I think it is a mistake to see these schools as taking away limited resources from HISD. I can only speak from my experience at Poe Nursery School, but I truly feel like it fosters community involvement and interest in Poe Elementary School that is beneficial beyond the space that the preschool occupies. It benefits students that become HISD students and parents. I strongly support the policy that quality pre-K education should be encouraged and expanded to be available tuition-free for all kids in the district, as it provides a foundation for success that every student deserves. The district should consider partnering with accredited and proven pre-Ks that are already providing this valuable education for our youngest students. Forcing POCO off the HISD campus is a step away from quality pre-K for more students, not a step towards it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
That concludes our speakers for hearing of the community.
Thank you. Unless there is objection from my colleagues, I'm going to leave trustee reports and comments until after we finish, until the very conclusion of our evening like we normally do. However, I would like to give Dr. Lathan, so that you don't need to stay if you don't want to through all of the continued whatever we're doing for board officers. So if you want to make your comments now, if you don't want to stay for that, or you don't want your staff to have to sit through all of this, that's at your discretion, as long as there's no objection from my colleagues.
I need to stay because I need to know who the president will be, because we have some work to do starting tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Well, then moving back to revisiting earlier from this evening, we are still discussing office of the board president. The nominations that are on the table, Dygard.
President Dygard, we technically have got to entertain a motion to take it from the table because we laid it on the table. Motion second, no discussion, and it just requires a simple majority.
Okay. Do I have a motion to
take from the table?
Take from the table
the election of officers.
The election of officers.
So moved. Santos.
Was there a second? Please vote. And trustees, we've been sitting for quite some time. Do you want to take a brief vote before we resume this discussion, or brief break before we resume this discussion? Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. We're voting to take from the table the discussion of officers. Trustee Sung, Trustee Hernandez, Trustee Guidry, Trustee Allen, Trustee Flynn Biliseca, Trustee Santos, please vote. Eight in favor, one opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. We are going to take a 9:09. Let's come back at 9:15. So 6 minutes to resume this discussion. We are resuming. We're resuming the vote for election of officers. We're still on office of the board president. If I have written this list in error, someone please correct me. Dygard, Allen, Sung, Flynn Biliseca, and Cruz. Okay, so beginning again, Trustee Dygard, please vote. Four in favor, 5 against. Trustee Allen? Three in favor, 6 against. Trustee Sung? Three in favor, 6 against. Trustee Flynn Biliseca? Okay, thank you. Trustee Cruz?
Point of order. The screen reflected 4 in favor and 5 against.
Excuse me?
There were 4 in favor, 5 against for Ann.
It was 3.
It was 3 and 6.
It was 3 and 6. Do you want to redo the vote?
I saw 1, 2, 3, 4 green, but okay.
Trustee Flynn Biliseca, you said you retracted your nomination. Trustee Cruz? Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. All right, we're circling around again. Trustee Dygard? Four in favor, 4 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Allen? 3 in favor, 6 opposed. Trustee Sung. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Cruz. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. I'm going to keep going around this until one of you says you want to try something different. And to anybody in the public that thinks that we're you wanted to see the sausage made. Okay, here we go. Trustee Dygard. Four in favor, 4 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Allen. Three in favor, 6 opposed. Trustee Sung. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Cruz. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Dygard. Four in favor, 5 opposed, 0 abstentions. Trustee Allen? Three in favor, 6 opposed, 0 abstentions. Trustee Sung? Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Cruz. Three in favor, 5 opposed, 1 abstention. Trustee Dygard.
Madam President?
Yes, ma'am.
Could we go into closed session?
Happy to. Okay. This one, right?
Yes.
The board will now adjourn to closed session in the Board Services Conference Room under Section D of Chapter 551 of Texas Government Code Open Meetings Act, subsections 551.004 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.0821, 551.083, 551.084, and 551.089. Should board final action vote or decision on any matter considered in the closed session be required, such final action vote or decision shall be taken at the open meeting covered by this notice upon the reconvening of this public meeting for a subsequent meeting of the board upon notice thereof. The board is adjourned to closed session at 9:29 p.m. This meeting is now reconvened in open session. The time is 10:42 p.m. We are going to do another round of this. The nominees are Dygard, Allen, Sung, and Cruz. Board Services, could you put the voting screen up, please? Thank you. All right, Trustee Dygard. Sorry. Four in favor, four opposed, one abstention. Trustee Allen. Four in favor, five opposed, zero abstentions. Trustee Sung. Three in favor, five opposed, one abstention. Trustee Cruz. Four in favor, five opposed, zero abstentions. All right, nobody has gotten to five. What is the pleasure of the board?
I move that we postpone the elections until February 21st. Next week.
Trustee Santos, do you mean January 21st or
I'm sorry, no. January 21st, the date of our next hearings.
There a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please use the chat. I have a comment to make. I am uncomfortable with the fact that we have not made a decision tonight as board president. If it is not the will of this board for me to continue as board president, I'm very uncomfortable continuing in the role. I just want to voice that. And I also want to voice my concern about this opening up. I feel like one of the reasons that we have come to this impasse is it is one of we have such a history of real and perceived deal making by the HISD school board, and I think for the first time that didn't happen, and that's why we are where we're at, which is a good thing. I see that as a good thing. I just hope that us waiting a week doesn't open the door to conversations outside of the public eye, and in ways that violate the Open Meetings Act, because we have now all had a conversation about these positions. So I feel like I have to publicly express my concern about that. So, all right, Trustee Guidry.
Thank you, President Dygard. I just want to say I think postponing for a week will be a good thing. The fact that we are deadlocked the way we are is because we have excellent candidates. And each one of you all bring a special thing to the presidency, and I think having 1 week to think about it will give us an opportunity to maybe push one of you over, by a vote. And that's all we need in some instances, one vote. So I think this time will just give us an opportunity to think about it a little bit more. But as the new person on the board, I want to say I don't see this as a negative, and it has not been a negative thing. It's been very positive that we've had an opportunity to speak candidly about one another and to hear those things that needed to be said, and we did it respectfully, and I'm still proud to be a part of this board, and I do believe 1 week of us resting and thinking things over will be a help. Thank you.
Thank you for your wise words, Trustee Guidry. I appreciate them. Okay, please vote.
Before the vote, President Dygard, I just want to make sure it's clear for the record. Trustee Santos, is your motion just for this position or to postpone voting on all positions?
All the board elections, everyone.
Thank you, Trustee Santos, for the clarification.
Trustee Flynn Villaseca. Okay. All right, please vote. Eight in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. We are now ready to hear reports and comments from board members. Please limit your time to 1 minute per trustee. Doesn't mean you have to use your minute. We are going to proceed from District 1 to District 9, and board services will track your time.
Thank you, President Dygard. I just want to say thank you to my colleagues. It's been an experience for 2020. Now that we're opening up 2021, I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody out there to hold us accountable and follow the money. Thank y'all. Bye.
Trustee Bluford Daniels.
This has been a long night, a long process, and I just I hope that we can reach an agreement and a conclusion on who best to lead us forward. I also want to express my appreciation and concern about the HFT building that was burned last week. And thank God that no one was in that building. Had it not been for COVID, it probably would have been full of people in that building. So we're thankful for that. The building can be replaced. And I also just like to say that in going through this process, I'm really concerned with the perception that the public may have. And I've said that repeatedly. Yes, we've got some really strong individuals and strong candidates are people to lead this organization, but I'm just really, really concerned with the general perception. So with that, I'll say good night. It's been a long, long night. Thank you all for staying. I know you all have families at home as well. So thank you. Thank you for your support, board services. Dr. Lathan.
Trustee Hernandez.
Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year, everyone. Stay safe, wear your mask. Have a good night.
Trustee Allen?
Good night, everyone. Please sleep well.
Trustee Flynn Villaseca?
Happy New Year, feliz año nuevo, y que descansen esta noche. All right, sleep tight.
Trustee Sung?
Thank you, colleagues. I want to echo Trustee Guidry and agree that we have an excellent slate of candidates, that we have had respectful discussion tonight, and that I have faith that this board can make a decision. And I have confidence that this board will follow the Open Meetings Act. I think that the fact that we're having this discussion today, that it's taken a while, is evidence of the fact that we're doing our business in public meetings. And I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation next week with all of you wonderful ladies. Thank you, Dr. Lathan. Thank you to our administration for all of your hard work. It is a tough time for all of us. Please be safe. And let's make 2021 better than 2020. Thank you.
Trustee Cruz?
Buenas noches.
Trustee Guidry?
Thank you, President Dygard. I had my say earlier. Just good night, everyone. Thank you.
Dr. Lathan, I want to thank you and your staff for your tireless work, for especially our trans students in HISD, and making sure that they are seen and valued equally with all of the students in HISD. I don't think you understand. I hope you understand how incredibly meaningful that was to our students. And then this has nothing to do with HISD, but my uncle passed away last week, and he was a lifetime educator. He was a special ed teacher and passed away alone in a nursing home. There will be no ceremony, and I just wanted to recognize him for his service in some space of education. Thank you.
Just excited about our MLK speech contest that will be held on tomorrow. So excited to see who the final winner will be.
Our next regular board meeting will be held on February 11th, 2021. An agenda review for that meeting will be held on February 4th, 2021. We do have hearings next Thursday, and we also have this item of business next Thursday, trustees. That meeting will be in the morning, not in the evening. There being no further business this evening, this meeting is officially adjourned at 10:54 p.m. Good night.